Yes, sir. Awesome. Here we go. Camera's out and we're filming, as it were.
What's up, dog?
Halle Berry is a lovely woman. A lot of her movies leave much to be desired, but who cares? She's hot. And one thing that makes her stand out is the fact that, like me, she's one of the 2.4% of Americans that have more than one identifiable recent ethnic background, more commonly known as multiracial. But that's not news. A lot of people are already aware that Halle has a white mother, like the president. And just like him, she chooses to call herself black. It's fine, it doesn't change the fact that she's actually half black. And even then, it's just a term intended for purposes of demographics. After all, ethnicity has practically nothing to do with biology, and is more often than not erroneously used interchangeably with the word race. But Halle opened up a nasty can of worms in this month's Ebony magazine when she spoke openly about her daughter Nala, whose father is white. She said, quote, "I feel like she's black. I'm black, and I'm her mother, and I believe in the one-drop theory." Oh yeah, she went there. There is no such thing as the one-drop theory. She's referring to the so-called one-drop rule that was enforced during the uglier era of American history ruled by white supremacy. Here's a quick history refresher for all you kids, and just in time for the horribly insulting tradition known as Black History Month. Okay, as we all know, slavery in the New World flourished from about 1526 to 1865. Fun fact, the first person in the United States to be legally recognized as a slave for life was owned by a black man named Anthony Johnson. There's something they don't teach you in school. Anyway, from the beginning, it was unfortunately not uncommon for slave masters to rape their female slaves. After all, they were property, chattel, and their masters could do with them what they wanted. After a few generations of mixing, the question of the so-called race of the offspring of these rapes became an issue. Although slavery was matrilineal, it came to a point in which some slaves were considerably lighter than their counterparts, almost as light as their owners/fathers. When these individuals were later freed, many of them had very little trouble passing for white. This raised ire among many racist white people who were simply appalled at the prospect of these imposters marrying into real white families, diluting their precious pure-blood whiteness with the filth of black sludge. But what do you do with individuals whose ancestries become more European than African? How do you keep them in their place? Solution? The one-drop rule, which dictated that if an individual had any African or Native ancestry, that person must be considered colored so they can be disenfranchised legally. This disgrace has survived for 3 centuries so far, and was even given legal legitimacy when it was cited in the Racial Integrity Act of 1924. I'll be fair and say that Halle is just ignorant of her American history, because if she isn't, she should be ashamed of herself for giving any kind of credence to this disgusting, outdated mentality. She also went on to say, if you're of multiple races, you have a different challenge, a unique challenge of embracing all of who you are but still finding a way to identify yourself. And I think that's often hard for us to do. Seems to me if you're going to reduce your identity to essentially which ethnic group you resemble the most, sounds like it would be quite easy to identify yourself. Why else would she choose to call herself black? I mean, let's face it, if Halle Berry and President Obama look more like me, I'm sure they'd be a bit more reluctant. Not due to shame or because they secretly wish they could pass for white, but for the most obvious reason. I'm just too damn fair-skinned to be taken seriously if I called myself black. For example, Mariah Carey. She's another black-white mix. How often is she referred to as black? How about Slash from Guns N' Roses? Would anyone take that seriously? And by the way, why does Halle think it's a challenge to embrace all of who she is because she's a half-breed? I mean, why should that even matter? Okay, I can see it being an issue because she's an actress. When you can't quite pass for one ethnicity or another, I guess it can be quite difficult to be considered for certain roles. Vin Diesel has spoken at length about this problem. I'll give her that. But her daughter doesn't have this problem. And I find it disturbing that she's hammering into her kid's impressionable mind some implication of owing something to the black part of her ancestry. And anyway, being a half-breed actress in the 21st century can't be much of a trial, especially if you're as stunning as she, and also happen to have won an Academy Award. And if you want to talk about someone whose ambiguous appearance caused serious difficulties in her life, Freddie Washington had to practically give up her acting career rather than betray her principles and pretend that she was white. Sorry, Halle, but you really don't have much room to complain. I don't know, maybe I was just lucky, but for me, being a mix has never been anything more than an occasional curiosity, especially since I've been researching my genealogy, or anytime I search for a hair salon that can deal with this. Other than that, it's always been rather meaningless to me, because I wasn't raised to be proud or ashamed of what ethnicity I am, but to look upon it with indifference. It was by an accident of birth that I was born to a couple that had a sharp contrasting complexion, and who I am and how I define myself has very little to do with that simple fact. So when people ask me what I am, I just shrug my shoulders and say, who cares? See, I couldn't care less what other half-breeds choose to call themselves. Black, mixed, biracial, multiracial, mulatto, half-caste, mutt, octoroons, whatever. But when you've got a high-profile mongrel like Halle Berry declaring that her fair-skinned toddler is black because she believes in the one-drop theory, thereby implying some truthfulness to a thoroughly debunked thought process born from the shame of 18th century American-bred white supremacy, that's just beyond foul.